Hey everybody, what's going on? It's James here with Crypto Common Sense, and I wanted to sit down today, May 19th, and shoot an update video on Bitcoin because I did a video a few days ago, and that video got a lot of interaction, and that's really just what I enjoy. I enjoy interacting with people. So the more comments and the more interaction I get, the more I want to do more videos. I was also really happy because in that video, I put forth a very controversial viewpoint, and even though a lot of people disagreed with me, I felt like overall the discussion and the comments were very respectful, and for the most part, just enjoyed talking with people and seeing different points of view. And I think that it's a great thing in the world when we can disagree, but still be polite to each other and have great conversations. And I think it's a great way to learn and go down different paths. So to those of you who commented, I want to say thank you. I appreciate it. Even if you don't agree with me, thanks for just having a conversation. It was really interesting. The one thing about that video, and I don't want to go too far off topic, I still didn't really get what I was kind of hoping to see, which is even the people who disagreed with me, a lot of it was just the same regurgitated crypto Kool-Aid stuff. And I don't mean that in a condescending way. It's just the same old, well, it's going to be a store of value. It's going to do this. It's going to be used for transactions. But nobody can really say, here's the evidence to support this. It's just the same ideas being put forth, which is, again, I really do believe it's just market mania overall, but we'll find out, right? In 10 or 15 years, we'll know. It doesn't affect today's price. So with that being said, even though I am long-term bearish, which is a deviation from a lot of my past viewpoints, usually I was short-term bearish with these long-term bullish macro views. In these last few years, that's flipped. I am long-term bearish. I think Bitcoin is going to ultimately, I don't think it's going to do what people think it's going to do. But in the short term, let's focus on that because that's what we can do something with today. In the short term, Bitcoin has some really interesting things going on right now. So let me turn these indicators off. There's two levels that I think are important to watch right now. And so let's start with the bearish side, and then I'll go to the bull side because I think the bull side has a very strong case right now. So if we look at the bearish side, right now we're testing these all-time highs. We have a couple of supply wicks sneaking above back here, and we kind of snuck above a little bit last night and then immediately sold off, which says there was definitely supply sitting up there. For people who are intraday or short-term traders, that presented a really good trade opportunity. They were able to scalp that move for 2, 3, 4R. And that's how trading works, right? Trading is all about taking advantage of short-term imbalances in the market. It doesn't give us a crystal ball, make us, the all-knowing, all-seeing, this is what's going to happen. It's just very short-term inefficiencies in the market. It is getting bought back up. So this is interesting, but just keep in mind that historically speaking, this has been through history, really, and in multiple markets, these types of things can be very nasty and end up forming double tops or end up performing liquidity sweeps. All right, let me show you what I'm talking about. I'll give you an example of this. So in 2021, the market came up and made an all-time high in the summer, had a pullback, and then retested it. And one of the reasons that I was so bearish back then is because this did look like a liquidity sweep to me. It looked like it was really just going up and retesting these old highs. And I felt like they were trapping retail on the buy side before they were going to send it down. And so just to give you a really, really short explanation here, when a large institution or a large trader needs to get a sell order filled, they need to push the market up first so that retail will buy their sell orders. And that's what this looked like, especially on a monthly chart. It was much easier to see. So as soon as this started closing back down in this zone, that made me very skeptical. And of course, that's when I started posting the market cycle chart saying that I felt like this was complacency. And I was measuring it versus the QQQ, which of course, if you're not sure what I'm talking about, I'll show you real quick. So this is Bitcoin versus QQQ. This was the same time. This was November of 2021, right? Lower high. Right now, we have very similar market behavior. We had the all-time high. We had the pullback. And now we're going up to retest that. It's happening a little bit quicker, right? Back here, this was, initially the all-time high was in April, and we didn't retest until October. This all-time high was in December. We're retesting it in May, so about 5 months later. But I guess it's not really that different, is it? That's about 6 months back in 2021, and we're about 5 months now, so not a whole lot different. So very similar, and what I'm waiting for is I'm wanting to see if this can take out this past level and close above it on a monthly candlestick. So if May's candle can close above this high, I think that points to more upside on Bitcoin. If it can't, especially if it starts to sell off and leave behind, a supply wick, I think this could end up being a double top that'll look something like this. And then we could actually start a corrective phase in the cycle. And it's a little too soon to say that it would be a market top for the entire cycle, but it could be some type of correction, perhaps back down to, the demand zone down here to like a 61.8 Fibonacci level, or to a VWAP or something along those lines. Okay. But that being said, if we zoom in a little bit, there's something happening right now that historically speaking has been ultra bullish on Bitcoin. If you look, let me just remove everything. This is a 50-day moving average, and this is the 200 moving average. And a lot of times, news articles and stuff will come out when you get these crosses. I think I did a video about this. I don't know if I put it on YouTube or if it was just in my Discord. But these are what I call fake death crosses, because the death crosses when the 50 crosses under the 200. But what people always leave out is a true death cross. Both moving averages are curling down. Okay. In this case, the 200 was actually still sloping up. So this was not a true death cross. But historically speaking, when Bitcoin has a fake death cross like this and then has a golden cross, and golden cross is when the 200 is sloping up and the 50 crosses above it, these historically have been extremely bullish indicators in Bitcoin. I'll give you some examples. The last time this happened was right here. So August of 2024, there was a fake death cross. And in October 2024, we had a golden cross. Almost a fake golden cross, really, because this was almost sloping down. But of course, that led to a huge move up in the market from around 60, 70,000 up to over 100,000. Go back in time a little further. We had this fake death cross followed by a golden cross. This occurred around 35,000. And of course, then the market moved towards 75,000. Going back in time even further here, we had this fake death cross, and this was back in 2021. Then we had this, pseudo golden cross. And again, even though this was right before the top, the market did end up moving up to about 69,000, and it was around 45,000 when this cross occurred. Go back in time further. This was back in 2020. This was a true death cross, by the way. See how the 200 was sloping down and the 50 was sloping down? It just ended up being the bottom. When they recrossed here, of course, price was around $9,100 and would have been a wonderful time to buy. This is one of the few times where it was a fake out, right? So you had the fake death cross, the golden cross, again, kind of a fake golden cross. And I'm saying fake because the 200 was sloping down, and then dump, okay? So nothing's perfect, but historically speaking, it's very easy to see that here's another one back here, right? In 2015. Didn't used to have a lot of these. Like this happened in 2015 and then didn't happen again until 2020. But over the last 4 or 5 years when they've happened, it has tended to be very, very bullish. And so that's something that I'm keeping an eye on, because wouldn't that be something if this was setting up this, liquidity play, and maybe what they're doing is trying to get bears to short this, and then they just punch right through it and use that, bear side short coverings to push the market up to its next all-time high. The interesting thing is I really feel like right now it's a coin flip. And so some people look at that and are like, well, how is that helpful? It's helpful because I know what to expect. Now, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know what to expect. I know if it closes above these levels, that means that it's likely to have bullish momentum, which means that I get to get in there. I'm not trading Bitcoin, just to be clear. I trade equities. So, and just real quickly to put this out there, I've said it before, but for those of you that are unsure why, if I trade $1 million in volume on Bitcoin, my fees are thousands of dollars. If I trade $1 million in volume on QQQ, my fees are roughly $28. In a busy day, I can trade $5 to $10 million. So my fees on QQQ end up being $100, $200. In cryptocurrency, my fees would literally be tens of thousands of dollars. So that's why I do not trade cryptocurrency anymore. But if I was, what I would do as a trader is I would wait for a close. And then if it closed bullish, I would say, okay, I'm going to hunt long setups. And if it closed bearish, leaving a tail behind, then I would hunt bearish setups. And if it does put in just a beautiful, perfect bear type of play, yes, I will consider selling off some more of the spot Bitcoin that I've been holding now for several years. Let's take a look real quick. Let's take a look at a weekly chart. The weekly chart, again, I have these levels marked up for the traps. So waiting to see how that plays out. We are above this long-term channel right now. So, doesn't really tell me a lot. Could just be, again, supplied before I move down. So we'll wait and see. We're above the 19-week moving average, so not a whole lot going on there. One thing that is a little bit concerning about this, obviously, is we are trying to put in some bearish divergences. So I want to keep an eye on that, especially on a monthly chart. We have a long-running bearish divergence that's now been going back several years. So that's a little bit troublesome, but we'll see what happens there. On a 3-day Bitcoin chart, nothing really jumps out at me that we haven't already looked at on other charts. Obviously this pulled back to a pretty cliche level of demand. You have an uptrend. Uptrends like to retest. Uptrends like to retest old levels, which is all this did. So as we speak, this is still an uptrend, just retesting the previous highs. If it fails here, then it can become a downtrend and end up being a double top. It can also just become a range though, so be aware of that. One thing that used to get me in trouble in my earlier days of trading is I would see something like this. I was very good at picking tops, but I thought everything was a market reversal. Like, oh, this is going to go way down. When in reality, a lot of times what they do is they will sell off, go down halfway through these ranges, and then chop around before making new highs. So that's always a possibility as well. So that's Bitcoin for now. Just a quick look at QQQ because, of course, it does impact Bitcoin. I know that people want to talk about stores of value, but let's go ahead and stay based in reality for now. For now, we know that Bitcoin is correlated to the QQQ, so we'll look at futures. Futures are kind of doing a similar dance right now as Bitcoin. This is a 4-hour chart. They're playing around in this supply zone on a 4-hour chart. We'll look at a daily chart. They're just kind of playing around, ranging sideways. So we need to wait and see what happens there before we get a clear sign. We basically have this whole zone through here that really needs to be taken out. That will help Bitcoin move. So if it can go up and close above these supply wicks specifically, I think that's a very strong sign for the QQQ or the NASDAQ. And by default, I think that'll be bullish in nature for Bitcoin as well. Now, if the QQQ, starts to fail at these levels and does start to move back down, then again, I think Bitcoin follows with it. Okay. We can take a quick look at the market cycle chart. We glanced at it earlier, but we didn't discuss it. So again, in the last video, I talked about this. I don't think everybody watched the whole video. I think some people heard my thesis on Bitcoin being a potential Ponzi and being, not a store of value. And they just shut me out. What I did go on to say in that video later in the video is I do think that if the stocks hold up, that there's a high potential for Bitcoin to hit $200,000 in this market cycle. And that as long as stocks hold up, that right now, there's a lot of similarities in the market cycle chart measuring Bitcoin versus QQQ and the Wall Street cheat sheet chart. And it looks to be in the area of optimism, right in this area here, basically through this choppy zone, right before it starts its parabolic leg of its market cycle. And this would line up with earlier predictions that I had made, saying that I thought the market would probably top in October of 2025, up around 200 to 250,000. Because if this is the parabolic phase and it's just now starting, oftentimes in the parabolic phase, your asset will double, right? It'll double in a very short amount of time. And Bitcoin historically has done this. It doubles very, very quickly. And so, for example, I remember in 2017, it got to 10,000. People were like, that's nuts. And then in the blink of an eye, it was at 20K, or even in 2020, we hit the all-time high at 20,000, and the next thing you know is boom, right? We're up to $60,000. So if this is the optimism phase that's just chopping around and getting ready to start, then I think it points to Bitcoin doubling versus the QQQ. So if the QQQ holds up and then Bitcoin doubles versus it, that stands to reason that Bitcoin will at least double versus US dollars as well. If, again, big if the stock market holds things together. So yes, long term, I have very serious doubts about Bitcoin due to all kinds of reasons that I discussed in the last video. But short term, I still believe that Bitcoin is a highly tradable, speculative asset. And that means that if you get in at the right times and you make the right moves, it certainly has an opportunity to make people wealthy. I don't believe in buying and hodling for the moon, because I think the asymmetric risks, I think they're a thing of the past. Me buying Bitcoin when it was $1,500 and somebody buying Bitcoin today at $100,000 doesn't have the same upside, right? I could buy it at $1,500 and a 10x only required a $15,000 Bitcoin. 10x today means Bitcoin has to go to $1 million. There's just not the same reward to risk ratios available from an investing standpoint, but from a trading standpoint, absolutely. There's still lots and lots of potential in this market. So those are my thoughts. Again, I wanted to do this video because the last video went so well. Again, not a lot of people agreed with me overall. Typically, I'll see anywhere from 95 to 100% thumbs up. I think that video is sitting around 72%. So that means that, at least a third of people roughly disagree with me. And I think some people gave it a thumbs up because they enjoyed the video, but still disagree with me. So I'd say at least half the people were like, you're wrong. Perfectly okay. It was just the way people went about it. Right? Having a polite discussion. It's always okay to disagree with people. We need to get back to that as a society, being able to shake hands, agree to disagree, and then go have dinner and just be friends. Instead of this entire us versus them theme that keeps playing out and turning people against each other. We don't need to do that. We all need to try to help each other do better, right? So all that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you will give it a thumbs up, and I hope you will subscribe to the channel. But please remember, I am just some guy sitting in a spare bedroom, and nothing in the video is financial advice. You should always go out and do your own due diligence and seek out professional financial advice from a licensed financial advisor for making any type of investment in cryptocurrency, the stock market, precious metals, Forex, or any other tradable assets. And as always, please remember to trade safe.